Welcome to the second training module on C40's vertically integrated action tool. This training module is going to focus on the sector analysis level within the tool. Training module 1 looked at the cross-cutting analysis, and training module 3 looks at the actions analysis. So here we are today on the home page of the tool, and essentially we're going to be working with the sector analysis, which diagnoses how city and other levels of government align around climate change in specific sectors that may be priorities for climate action plan delivery. So we are going to go straight through to the sector analysis work page by clicking on the button at the top of the page. And here the page opens for you to have a look. Here is the set of navigation buttons, which are common to all of the pages in the tool. And at the bottom, we have the typical tabs that you can also use to navigate around the tool, given that this is an Excel-based tool. So we have a set of instructions that you can use to refer to should you be a little unsure of what to do in completing this section of the tool. We're going to go right in. I want to show you that there are two tables on this page. The one table deals with climate change mitigation and the other table deals with adaptation. What we are trying to do with these two tables is start this process of analysing vertical integration around key sectors by making a direct link between the sectors and the city's climate action plan, mitigation and adaptation targets and goals. What we want to do in this process is come up with a ranked list of sectors for mitigation and for adaptation that allows us to choose which sectors we're wanting to analyse further. You can analyse all sectors in this tool if you really want to, or you can just pick and choose those sectors that are really most important for delivery of the city's climate action plan. Before we start filling out these tables, it's really important to first set the context of the analysis. You need to look at this particular bar and decide whether you are making an analysis of alignment between city government and a national government, or city government and provincial and state government. Once you've set this context, you need to bear this in mind for how you answer all the questions which follow. So going straight down into the first set of tables where we are ranking the importance of the sectors for delivery of the city's climate action plan. We'll have a look at this table here, which is focusing on climate change mitigation. Here are a list of typical sectors that one considers around climate change mitigation. And there's a couple of key questions around how important these sectors are for the delivery of the city's mitigation targets. So for each one of these questions, you need to decide how important the sector is. But before you do that, it would be quite useful perhaps just to remember that when talking about targets, there will obviously be a year linked to those targets. So you can remind yourself of the context by selecting the target time frame in this top bar. And there's a whole bunch of options that you can choose from a pre-selected list. So taking, for example, energy supply, we are being asked to rank the importance of energy supply in terms of the city's emissions reductions targets. If you click on this section of the table here, ordinarily this would be blank. I have pre-populated some answers into this table just so that you can see how it works. But ordinarily the cells will be blank, just with this text, select an answer in the cell. You can click on the little right arrow down at the right-hand side of the cell, and a list of potential answers will drop down. You can select from that list, and it will put in an answer which is associated with a priority score. The higher the importance of the sector is to the delivery of the city's emissions reductions targets, the higher the priority score, and the higher ranked the sector will be in the ranked list of sectors. What is quite important is we've included a kind of a stop button in here so that if you select answers that add up to more than 100% of the city's emissions reductions targets, this ranked list table will start to grey out. So if that happens, that's the reason why you've actually put in more than 100% of the emissions reductions targets in your answers, which obviously doesn't work. So we've pre-selected some answers here so that you can see what the ranked list looks like. Essentially, energy supply emerges as the most important sector for delivery of the city's emissions reductions targets. Second on the list are transport, urban planning and design, and industry, and then buildings and solid waste and wastewater management. So that's just an example of how to go about ranking the sectors from a mitigation perspective. We use a very similar process for the adaptation sectors. Again, quite useful potentially to just record what kind of time frame you're thinking about when considering targets and goals against which to rank your sectors' importance. And here, the answers that we choose for each one of the adaptation sectors is slightly different in the sense that it is not a quantified answer, it's more of a level of role that the sector plays in terms of addressing key climate change risks. So again, you go through each one of the sectors and you choose an answer to the question from the drop-down list of answers, and a priority score is generated. So here's our ranked list of adaptation sectors in this example, and we see that we've got water supply, urban stormwater management, disaster management, and agriculture and forestry all ranked with a 5, the highest score for this example. These other sectors get a score of 4, which is the next most important set of sectors, and then we've got a 3 and a 2 down the bottom. So once you've gone through this process, it's really up to you as the user to decide which sectors you're wanting to analyze in terms of vertical integration. Obviously, the more important a sector is for delivery of a city's climate action plan goals and targets, the more important it is to understand how vertical integration may be playing a role in enabling climate action in that sector, or maybe forming barriers to climate action in that sector. So in this example that we've worked up here, we've actually gone and analysed energy supply in buildings, just to show you how the analysis works. But if you had decided the same and you wanted to now analyse energy supply in terms of vertical integration, you would look at this list here and you would click on the energy supply button, where you'd be taken to an energy supply work page with a whole other table in it, giving you an opportunity to answer a whole set of questions around vertical integration, using a similar set of themes to the one that we have used in the cross-cutting analysis. Please go and have a look at the Module 1 training on the cross-cutting analysis if you're interested in finding out more about these themes. And essentially one goes through a process of answering these questions by selecting answers from drop-down lists in the table. Again, scores are generated depending on what answers you select, with higher scores generally indicating a greater level of alignment between city and national government, and low scores indicating a low level of alignment between city and national government. And obviously the total score for each one of these themes gives you a sense of how aligned city and national government are around that theme in the particular sector that you are analysing. So once you've gone through the process of answering all the questions in the table, you can go back to the sector analysis, select another sector to be analysed, go through the same process, and once you've analysed all of the sectors that you're wanting to analyse, you can then go and have a look at the results. So in this worked example, we've analysed some mitigation sectors and some adaptation sectors, just so that you can see what the results look like. So let's click on the results button now. And here we arrive on the sector analysis results page. There are a series of charts that get pre-populated with the scores from the tables that you've completed. And essentially it's the same information, just presented in several different ways. And we've done this in the tool, given that different people using the tool may have different information needs coming out of it. So we have several different charts that you can use, and whichever one suits you best for your needs, you can take that chart and use it. This first chart here shows you that we've got some mitigation sectors that we've analysed and some adaptation sectors that we've analysed. On this chart, the taller the bar, the more vertically integrated the sector is. And it's a stacked bar chart, so essentially all these different colors in the chart tell you what the contribution is of these different vertical integration themes to the overall vertical integration score that has been generated. Now you can see immediately looking at this chart that the building sector is much more vertically integrated than the energy supply sector. And you can see that the reasons for that is that it gets a much higher political alignment score, a higher policy and powers alignment score, a higher institutional alignment score, and a slightly higher financing climate action score. The scores for capacity and skills alignment and information and knowledge alignment are much the same between the energy supply and the building sectors. So that in itself just gives you some information. The energy supply sector clearly has some vertical integration constraints associated with it. You could make a similar analysis looking at the adaptation sectors, but interestingly, comparing the two, you can immediately see that the building sector for mitigation focus is better vertically aligned than the building sector with an adaptation focus. So the next chart just splits the information up according to theme now instead of according to sectors, and shows you the cumulative score of the energy sector and the building sector to each of these themes. And here we have a comparison of the mitigation and adaptation vertical integration scores per sector. And this is the same thing, a comparison of the mitigation and adaptation scores per vertical alignment theme. And then this chart, which is probably one of the more useful charts overall in terms of making a decision around which sectors should be the focus of efforts to improve vertical integration. Essentially what we've done with these charts is we've plotted each of the sectors that has been analysed against the importance of the sector for delivery of the city's climate action targets on the vertical axis, and the level of vertical alignment of that sector already in the horizontal axis. So what we see is that in this quadrant at the top left of each one of the charts, any sector that falls within this top left quadrant is a sector that is important for climate action plan target delivery, but it's constrained by vertical integration barriers. So sectors falling within this quadrant would be a high priority to focus on in terms of responding to vertical integration barriers and challenges. We also have a table which pre-populates with any comments that you might have made in the analysis process in the comments column next door to the tables. If any of the comments that automatically pull through into this table don't appear in full, you can in fact change the row height so that the comments fit. And that's pretty much the sector results. Please join us for the actions analysis module, which is the next one in the series.